First of all, this is not my program. This is a program over in Europe that I think that holds some really nice potentials for this group here and others that you're working with as you go back to your states. And we're using the clicker here, is that correct? The arrows work?
Or you can use the arrow.
Or the arrows, okay. That might be easier. So the ILE Sustainability Network, it's an association that basically came out of a European Union-wide, nicely funded project, 3-year project, and it's all about teaching and sustainable development in the life sciences in Europe. It's got a very long title, but they collapsed it down to ILE. And I got involved in this project a bit because the PI I knew, been working with her and others at their school in Dijon, which is in Burgundy in France. They're the PIs on the project. They brought me in as an outsider on this on a couple of occasions because in the European system, they don't know much about extension at all. They don't have this kind of an institution within their universities there. In France, for example, they rely upon like the chambers of agriculture to carry out a lot of the outreach missions, or the Ministry of Agriculture, the federal or even the EU level. So I gotta put my glasses on to read my notes here, don't I? So there's 39 institutions, 30 European countries involved in this, and you can read as well as I can the rest there. So they had about $1 million in this, 782,000 euros over 3 years. And they brought these folks together for several meetings. I think they had 9 or 10. I'll probably have that in a slide here in a little bit, but you can see where they're coming from there. That's at a meeting in the UK. I'm in that picture. One of the couple meetings I went to at a agricultural university over there. And they came together for roughly about a week each time to work on their agenda that was proposed in the grant proposal to the European Union. So basically, they were trying to take this somewhat amorphous idea of sustainable development that a lot of people didn't think necessarily understood very well in concrete terms, to break that into parts that people could understand better, and to gather up the best practices that were already being done out there across the European Union. And their network was in the countries that are part of the European Union right now, but they also reached out into some of the potential countries coming in the European Union, like Turkey and Bulgaria, for example. And we had a meeting in Slovenia, which is now part of the European Union. So we're getting into Central Europe as well with this. And they've had folks in from the Ukraine as well too, so actually getting into Eastern Europe with this network. So they had several meetings, and this is what they achieved. They had these meetings, the 7 of them I guess there were, based upon work modules within the grant program. They have a website, and I'll show that to you, and I think that, post today, since we have 15 minutes to just introduce this today, that's where you're going to find kind of the richer resources that they've already developed and made publicly available. And they're translatable into French and English and all the European Union languages there. So one of the best and most useful things they have out there, I think, is this Good Practices Compendium, and you'll find that on their website. But these are kind of the activities that they did for those and the products that they produced out of all of those meetings and comings together. And of course, there was a lot of work that transpired between those meetings as well. They met roughly twice a year. The thing is, the funding ended this last year, right? And they put in for another round of funding, and they did not receive it. Part of their sustainability model was to develop an association, which they all could pay some dues to, and to try to hold the network together. And they were able to do that. They have the association developed. But in terms of funding to say actually pay for travel and those sorts of things that people were somewhat accustomed to advance the cause, that kind of dried up now. They're looking for other funding sources. So one of these things here is this ILE Association that they developed, as I just mentioned. And you can see it's life sciences, applied sciences, and social sciences now is what they're kind of looking at, because they began to see the need for not just being within the life sciences, but being a little more expansive. And they also saw the need for reaching out to other affiliates across the globe that might want to affiliate with this organization. So their objectives are to keep this, this network together so that they can continue the learning and sharing of best practices, so they can continue to produce these kinds of products and kind of put forward the agenda of doing a good job with teaching these concepts to the students that are in their institutions primarily. And so in our equivalent setting here within land-grant universities, and non-land-grant as well, when you have the rare opportunities in someone's life to take advantage of them being in a place in their life where they're really open to learning, or they should be, right? They thought this was a good target, and I agree as well. So I think our students in our colleges of agriculture and life science and those sorts of things across the country could benefit through association with this group. Let's see here. So they've identified some geographic zones for the advancement of this association. And these are basically the world carved up into those zones. North America is there. And to date, I and a colleague of mine at Clemson are the only ones who are officially members. So I guess we're the delegates for the North American branch of this. But I don't want us to be the only ones. So I kind of have an agenda here to let you know about this and to take a look at it and see if you think it's something that you might want to do at the institutional level. There's institutional memberships. There's also individual memberships. So whatever kind of works for you, I think, is what's there. You know, their objectives are to put together conferences, meetings, and that sort of thing, to share knowledge as it's generated, and to eventually, you know, as you pull together these people that have various levels of expertise in specific areas, to basically serve as a network to help people at project level to plug in expertise where needed, and then to carry out this research and transfer of innovation. They've got their officers. That woman, Corinne Stewart from France, she's my primary contact, or she was at the beginning of this. She was going to try to be here, but funding issues kept her from being here. Right here's the website. I want you all to write down, or I guess it will be made available post this meeting on your website for the conference. But if you go out here, and we're not going to take the time to go out there now because we'll get lost in the weeds with that, there's a lot of information there. So these are the slides that I thought, that I developed basically. I have 5 minutes, okay, perfect. Some of the potentials that I thought were within this activity that's going on over in the European Union is that, you know, again, these EU project participants are very interested in this outreach thing, but they don't have but little experience. They don't have the institutional mechanisms within their institutions, so they're struggling with how do they get what they've learned and what they know out to civil society within the European Union context. So I think there's some benefits there around exchange of knowledge where they've got levels of expertise that needs to be shared somewhere. And we have the mechanisms of extension and outreach here in the U.S. that could be of great benefit to them. These ILE Association members, too, are very open about it. And so creating a network that can share that knowledge is of great importance. And I think where we have the mechanisms to have some cooperation and to perhaps attract some large funding opportunities, sometimes having a solid connection with European Union partners can do that. And there is my email address, which you get as well, and Corinne's as well, who is really at the center of activities with the ILE Association. So it's, without going into great detail, that's out on the website. I want you to know about it, take a look at it. If questions arise or if you have ideas about how something like this could be made to be a benefit to this effort, perhaps, some sort of formal connection or informal, then that's what I wanted to come and present and let you know about the opportunities that are there. And I did it ahead of time, I think. Okay, thank you.